Imam Muslim narrated to us by Abu Hurairah within this theme of the significance of Jumaah and some of the etiquettes of the day of Jumaah. This hadith is a little bit different. It's actually something that's really important for us to learn from. So I'm going to narrate to you and I'll point out the difference. This is what he said عليه الصلاة والسلام. قال لا تختصوا الجمعة بقيام من بين الليالي ولا تخصوا يوم الجمعة بصيام من بين الأيام إلا أن يكون في صوم يصومه أحدكم. So what he said عليه الصلاة والسلام is, don't specify the night of Jumu'ah for qiyam, and don't specify the day of Jumu'ah for fasting, except if it's within a habit of what you were doing before. And this is a very important hadith, and I find it causes a lot of difficulty for people these days because they're not sure what to do with it. So the Prophet ﷺ, here's what he's trying to teach us, is that as I explained to you, because he spent, as you've seen so far, he talked a lot about the importance of the day of Jumu'ah. I've narrated like at least 10 hadith where he just talks about the importance and the significance and the value and the sanctity of the day of Jumu'ah. So some people start to think, well, if that's important, then I should fast every Jumu'ah. It's such a sacred day, and I will pray every night, all night on the night of Jumu'ah because it's so valuable. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, that's not what I'm trying to teach you. An extremely sacred day, and the sanctity of it is the salat of Jumu'ah. That's where you're going to practice the sanctity of it. It's not up to us to choose how we want to celebrate the holiness or the sanctity of something. That's what the Prophet ﷺ explains to us, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. We have to do it the way they explain. So Jumu'ah as a day, the sanctity of it, the holiness of that day, the sacredness of that day is going to be seen through the prayer of Jumu'ah, through following the etiquettes of coming early to Jumu'ah, reciting Surah Al-Kahf and making sure you have ghusl, as we'll go through all these, and making tib and coming. That's the sanctity of it. You can't decide, no, I want to celebrate the sanctity of Jumu'ah by fasting every Jumu'ah. That's not how this is going to work. The same thing for Qiyam. It doesn't mean that if it's significant for you to fast on a Friday because that's your day off, that it's haram for you to do so. Are you saying a difference here? If for you Friday works in terms of the night for prayer and the day for Siyam, because it works, because that's the day that you have off, or that's where you have the least work, or you're capable of doing it, because it works, then you can go ahead and do it. But if you're doing it because you believe that Jumu'ah is an extremely sacred day, and this is how you should honor the sanctity of it, then the answer is no. So it comes down to why you're doing what you're doing, which is why the Prophet ﷺ said at the end, unless it's a part of a habit. So if you fast day in, day out, and it happened the day in to be Jumu'ah, then you fast. If you're fasting the first 3 days of every week because that works for you, or the last 3 days of every week, or you pray on certain nights of the week when you don't have an early morning and it happens to be Jumu'ah, then go ahead. But if you're doing it because Jumu'ah is a sacred day and that's how you want to honor the day of Jumu'ah and honor its sanctity, then you don't do it, because you're doing it for the wrong reason. And yes, in Islam, the reason matters. Oh, of course it matters. Everything is based on niyyah. It's all based on why you're doing what you're doing. What is your intention? If you have the wrong understanding and the wrong intention, then the deed doesn't do much. The deed is left. Allahu Akbar. The deed stays on the ground. It doesn't elevate. It doesn't go up. No one cares for it because you didn't do it for the right reasoning. So when the Prophet ﷺ explains things to us, he's trying to help us understand why we should do things and why we shouldn't. So if you believe that Jumu'ah is a sacred day and you love it, then honor it the way you were commanded to honor it, by respecting the etiquettes of Jumu'ah and attending Jumu'ah appropriately and seeing the value of that. Don't honor it by fasting every Jumu'ah and praying every night. But if you have a habit and it happens to fall on the day of Jumu'ah in terms of fasting, or that night works for you because you have a late morning and you want to do some qiyam, then go ahead, because that day is convenient. There's a difference between the two, and that is what fiqh is. That's comprehending the deen, understanding what the Prophet ﷺ is explaining. And I hope that's important, that makes sense to you, because it's important. Because I find people argue about this a lot. If a group, like they were trying to do a qiyam on the day of Jumu'ah at night. So we were told you can't do it because it's the night of Jumu'ah. Like, first of all, it's not the night of Jumu'ah. That's the night before. This is the night of Saturday. So unless we have a reason not to pray the night of Saturday, I don't know exactly what the problem is. Because we're not understanding that you have to ask also what is the intention behind the things that are being done? What is the philosophy? What is the logic behind it? We are not allowed to make things up within our deen. We were not told to honor the day of Jum'ah through siyam and salat al-layl. So we won't. We were told to honor the day of Jum'ah through the etiquettes of the prayer of Jum'ah and the prayer itself, and that's what we should hold dearly and adhere to clearly. يروي الإمام مسلم في صحيحه عن أبي هريرة قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم لا تختصوا الجمعة بقيام من بين الليالي ولا تخصوا يوم الجمعة بصيام من بين الأيام إلا أن يكون في صوم يصومه أحدكم. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.